You're standing at the mechanic's counter, staring at a repair estimate for $800. Your brain immediately goes into a frantic overdrive. You start mentally shuffling money from next week's grocery budget just to cover it. You seriously consider putting it on the credit card that already carries a 22% interest rate. And for a brief, exhausting second, you wonder why you work 40 hours a week just to feel this close to the edge every single time a minor inconvenience happens. The internet is full of financial experts telling you that $1 million is the ultimate goal. They say a six-figure salary is the magic line where financial anxiety magically disappears. They want you to focus on early retirement, complex stock portfolios, and real estate empires. But they are completely skipping over the only number that actually matters when you are stuck in the cycle of just trying to survive the month. There is a specific mathematical and psychological barrier that completely alters your reality. It is the exact point where money stops being a source of daily panic and starts becoming a tool for leverage. And it is nowhere near $1 million. It is $10,000. Society conditions you to think that having 10 grand sitting in a bank account is just a nice little buffer. Most people assume it just means you can buy a nicer television or take a decent vacation without feeling guilty for a week. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of what cash actually does to the human brain. $10,000 does not make you wealthy. You cannot retire on it. You cannot buy a luxury car with it. But it buys something infinitely more valuable than any physical object. It buys a complete psychological override of your deepest survival instincts. When you cross that very specific threshold, your relationship with your boss, your stress levels, and your future fundamentally shifts. You stop reacting to everyday emergencies. You stop tolerating toxic work environments just because you need the next paycheck to clear rent. But getting to that exact number requires a brutal, exhausting fight against a financial system that is specifically designed to keep your account balance hovering near zero. Because the absolute hardest money you will ever save is not your first million. It is the first 10,000. And understanding the hidden forces working against you is the only way you will ever actually keep it. Let us talk about why smart people make terrible money decisions. It has nothing to do with intelligence or a lack of willpower. It is entirely about how the human brain processes chronic stress. When your checking account constantly hovers near zero, your mind enters a literal state of survival. You are not thinking about compound interest or 5-year retirement projections. You are thinking about how to stretch half a tank of gas until Friday. In this state, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for long-term planning, basically shuts down. Your brain diverts all its energy to dealing with the immediate threat in front of you. This is why you end up spending money you do not have on things you do not even want. Think about a typical Tuesday evening. You just finished a 9-hour shift dealing with a boss who does not respect your time. You are driving home, sitting in traffic, and the thought of standing in your kitchen boiling pasta feels physically impossible. So, you pull into a drive-thru or order a $30 delivery meal. Financial experts love to call this laziness. They tell you to just meal prep and stop buying coffee to fix your life. But it is not laziness. It is decision fatigue. You have spent all day making choices for someone else, and your brain is desperate for a quick hit of comfort. That $30 meal is not food. It is a temporary escape from the low-level anxiety that constantly hums in the background of your life. The financial system is built to punish this exact state of exhaustion. When your account is low, you are constantly checking your banking app, praying a pending charge does not trigger a $35 overdraft fee. That constant monitoring is a massive drain on your cognitive bandwidth. You are spending mental energy managing scarcity instead of creating value. You delay paying a utility bill because you need the cash for groceries, and suddenly, you are hit with a late fee. That late fee is not just a mathematical loss. It is a psychological blow that reinforces the feeling of being trapped. Because you cannot afford the big things, the secure housing, the reliable car, the real vacation, you settle for micro-luxuries. You wander the aisles of a store, buying $40 worth of random items you do not need. You upgrade your streaming service or buy a new shirt for a Friday night out. These small purchases give you a momentary illusion of control over your life. They trick your brain into feeling like you have purchasing power. But corporate marketing is actively weaponizing this exact psychological vulnerability against you. Every app, every notification, every targeted ad is designed to catch you at your weakest, most exhausted moment. They know that when you are stressed, you spend to self-soothe. And then the inevitable happens. You finally manage to save $500 by cutting back. You start to feel a tiny bit of breathing room. Then your car needs a new alternator, or you get a dental bill, or your dog gets sick. The $500 vanishes instantly. This is the most dangerous moment in the entire financial loop. When your progress gets wiped out repeatedly, you develop learned helplessness. Your brain literally rewires itself to believe that saving is pointless. You start telling yourself that something will always go wrong, so you might as well spend the money while you have it. This is how capable people spend a decade of their lives making decent money but having zero net worth to show for it. They are running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. They get a small raise at work and immediately absorb it into their lifestyle just to make the daily grind feel slightly more tolerable. They upgrade their apartment or finance a slightly newer car, hoping it will finally make them feel successful. But the underlying anxiety never actually goes away. You are not broken for thinking this way. You are reacting exactly how human biology dictates you should react to a state of constant financial pressure. But while this psychological loop is draining your energy, it is doing something much worse to your actual dollars. Being stuck in this mental trap carries a massive, quantifiable penalty, and the math behind this penalty is staggering. Most people think having $0 means you just have $0. But zero is not a neutral state. Zero is the most expensive number in personal finance. When you do not have $10,000 sitting in a bank account, you are constantly paying what economists call the poverty premium. Let us break down the actual math of a typical year without a financial buffer. You get a flat tire and realize your car needs 2 new ones immediately. It costs $400. Because you do not have the cash, you put it on a credit card. You only make the minimum payment of $25 a month because your budget is already stretched to the breaking point. It takes you over 2 years to pay off that simple repair, and you end up paying an extra $130 in pure interest. That is $130 of your future labor handed directly to a bank for absolutely nothing in return. Now look at your monthly bills. Your car insurance company offers a 15% discount if you pay the 6-month premium up front. But you cannot afford the $600 lump sum, so you pay monthly, adding an extra $90 to your yearly expenses. Your apartment complex charges a $50 late fee when your rent is 2 days late because your paycheck clears on the 3rd of the month instead of the 1st. That is another $600 a year completely vanished. Add in a couple of unexpected overdraft fees from your bank, suddenly you are paying over $1,000 a year just for the privilege of not having money. If you make $20 an hour after taxes, you just spent 50 hours of your actual human life, more than an entire work week, grinding away at a job simply to pay fees that wealthy people literally never pay. There is also a famous economic concept regarding the cost of cheap goods. A person with money buys a high-quality winter coat for $200 that lasts for 10 years. A person struggling financially can only afford a $50 coat that falls apart after a single winter. Over that same decade, the broke person spends $500 on terrible coats and is still cold every January. The person with savings spent less than half that amount and stayed warm. When you do not have a $10,000 buffer, you are constantly forced to choose the cheap option today that becomes astronomically expensive tomorrow. You buy the unreliable used car that constantly needs repairs instead of the reliable one that costs slightly more upfront. You defer basic dental work because you cannot afford a simple filling. A year later, that ignored filling becomes a $2,000 root canal. But these hidden costs are not even the most expensive part of the equation. The true cost of living near zero is what it does to your earning potential. When your bank account is empty, your employer holds absolute leverage over your life. You are terrified of being fired. You will not ask for a raise because you cannot risk rocking the boat. If your company denies your promotion and demands you work weekends, you swallow your pride and go back to your desk. Because quitting means missing rent next month and facing eviction. Now, inject $10,000 into that exact same scenario. $10,000 represents roughly 3 to 4 months of basic living expenses for the average person. It is a runway. When you have a 4-month runway, the power dynamic fundamentally flips. You walk into your annual review knowing that if they say no, you can literally walk away. You can comfortably spend the next 8 weeks interviewing for a competitor who recognizes your value. Let us say that new job pays an extra $8,000 a year. Over a 5-year period, that is $40,000 of lost income. You lost $40,000 entirely because you did not have the initial $10,000 required to confidently say no to a bad deal. This is where the math creates a massive shift in your trajectory. Financial advisors love to talk about the magic of compound interest. They tell you that investing money at an 8% return will double your wealth over time. But when you are starting from zero, you are experiencing compound interest in reverse. When you lack a cash buffer, every unpredictable life event becomes high-interest consumer debt. Carrying a $5,000 credit card balance at 22% interest costs you over $1,100 a year. Getting to $10,000 in savings does two things simultaneously. It stops the bleeding of compound debt, and it starts the engine of true compound growth. You are not just gaining an 8% return on investments later, you are immediately eliminating a 22% penalty. That is a 30% mathematical swing in your net worth every single year. Stop looking at this $10,000 as a pile of physical cash. Look at it as compressed time. Every dollar you keep is a tiny fraction of your future freedom. When you spend $200 on something you do not really need, you are not just losing $200. You are taking a day of your retirement and handing it to a corporation. You are agreeing to work an extra Tuesday 10 years from now. Having $10,000 means you have officially bought back months of your life. It means when the transmission blows on your car, it is a frustrating Tuesday afternoon. It is a simple transaction. You swipe your debit card, the car gets fixed, and your life continues uninterrupted. It does not trigger a cascading sequence of financial anxiety, late fees, and minimum payments that ruin your next 3 years. You stop paying the poverty premium. You regain your ability to negotiate your value in the marketplace. You stop selling your future time to service past emergencies. This is the mathematical reality that completely separates people who build wealth from people who are just surviving. If you change nothing today, I can tell you exactly what your life will look like in 10 years. You will still be waiting for the next paycheck to clear before you can buy groceries. You will still be terrified of the check engine light coming on. But there will be one massive, devastating difference. You will be 10 years older, with significantly less energy to fight the exact same battles. Living near zero in your 20s is exhausting. Living near zero in your 40s or 50s is a quiet, soul-crushing tragedy. You will watch your peers start talking about investment portfolios and paying off mortgages, while you are still trying to figure out how to pay off a credit card balance from a vacation you took 3 years ago. The financial system relies on you staying on this path. They need you to keep believing that the only way to get a new phone, a decent car, or a week off from work is to finance it. But breaking this cycle and building that $10,000 wall between you and the system requires a complete structural overhaul of how you handle cash. It does not happen by deciding to be better at budgeting. Willpower is a finite resource. If you rely on willpower to save money, you will fail every single time you have a bad day at work. The smarter path is entirely about systems. First, you have to stop the bleeding. This means an absolute, non-negotiable freeze on lifestyle inflation. When you get a raise, a bonus, or a tax refund, your brain will immediately try to convince you that you deserve a reward. You will suddenly feel the urge to move to a nicer apartment or trade in your car for a newer model. You have to override that instinct. Every single extra dollar you earn must be aggressively funneled into reaching that $10,000 threshold. You are not depriving yourself of a reward. You are funding your future escape. Second, you have to protect your income from your own impulses. The biggest mistake people make is paying all their bills, buying their groceries, spending money on weekend entertainment, and then promising to save whatever is left over. There is never anything left over. Human nature guarantees that your spending will always expand to consume your available bank balance. You have to reverse the entire process. Third, you must automate the extraction. The moment your paycheck hits your account, a specific percentage must be automatically transferred to a completely separate bank. Do not use a different account at the same bank where you can instantly transfer it back when you want to order sushi. You must use a completely different institution that takes 2 to 3 business days to transfer funds. You are creating artificial friction. If you want to spend that money, you have to wait 3 days for it to clear. 99% of your impulse purchases will not survive a 3-day waiting period. Once you set this system up, you stop thinking about saving. You stop agonizing over every small purchase. You just live your life on the remaining balance, knowing that the foundation is quietly being built in the background. Yes, getting to $10,000 will require a period of extreme, uncomfortable discipline. You might have to work a side job for a year. You might have to say no to social events and accept that some people will think you are cheap. You might have to sell the car that carries a $500 monthly payment and drive something incredibly boring. But that temporary discomfort is the price of admission to a completely different financial reality. You are trading 12 to 18 months of strict discipline for decades of psychological peace. Because once that money is sitting there, the dynamic permanently shifts. You stop playing defense, and you finally get to start playing offense. Most people spend their entire lives chasing a number they will never actually reach. They sacrifice their 20s and 30s grinding for a mythical millionaire status. But they completely ignore the most transformative number in personal finance. Having $10,000 in the bank does not mean you have won the game of wealth. It just means you are finally sitting at the table. It means you are no longer the prey in a financial ecosystem that feeds on desperation. When you have $0, your entire existence is dictated by other people's terms. Your landlord, your boss, your credit card company all get a vote in how you live your life. They get to decide what you tolerate because they know you cannot afford to leave. $10,000 revokes their voting rights. It draws a permanent line in the sand between what you are willing to accept and what you walk away from. Think about the physical toll of living without that financial buffer. The knot in your stomach when the mail arrives. The silent panic when your boss calls an unexpected meeting. That chronic stress literally shaves years off your lifespan. When you save that first 10 grand, you are not just stockpiling paper in a banking app. You are actively buying back your physical and mental health. You are purchasing the right to sleep through the night without your heart racing. And once you experience that level of peace, you will never want to go back to the chaos of living paycheck to paycheck. You will guard that money fiercely because you know exactly what it represents. It is the exact price of your baseline human dignity in a modern economy. You stop making decisions based on the immediate fear of what happens next week. You start making decisions based on who you want to be 5 years from now. That shift in perspective is the actual definition of wealth. Wealth is not the car you drive or the labels on your clothes. Wealth is the quiet, undeniable confidence of knowing that your time belongs entirely to you. It is the ability to look a bad situation in the eye and calmly say, no. Stop worrying about the $1,000,000 finish line. Focus every ounce of your energy on building that $10,000 wall. Because once you build it, you never have to live in fear of the system again. If this changed how you look at your money, hit subscribe. We have a lot more truth to uncover. See you next time.